Ooh, check out my Android collection. Hi folks, I'm on Android.com where we get on Android every day. Anyway, I thought it would be a great time to do a buying guide for flagship phones that came out in 2014 and 2015. I've got about, I think 13 or 14 of these phones that came out in 2014 and 2015. Anyway, sort of a buying guide, whether you're buying a used guide, you want the best deal on it, or you want the best of the latest. I'm gonna go ahead and do a mini review of all of these phones since I got them all here. I'm kind of point out the advantage, the pros and cons, and that way it will help you decide on buying your next phone. And also I'm gonna go ahead and add in some routing and custom ROM info for all of these, so you know which model, which carrier is the best one to get. Anyway, let's go ahead and do this, baby. Alright guys, these are all the phones that I own actually, and I've actually bought these with my own money, for those of you asking. I spend a lot of money on phones, as some of you know. Anyway, this is a Galaxy S6, S6 Edge, HTC One M9, Asus Zenfone 2, now Note 4, Note Edge, Nexus 6, LG G Flex 2, Note 4, LG G3, Galaxy S5, OnePlus One, HTC One M8. I may have not included some phones like Sony because I never really bought them. And also I might have not included some phones, but these are just the phones I own. And I've actually used them all as daily driver. So I have pretty good knowledge of each of these. But anyway, I'm gonna go ahead and start with the oldest one. I'm gonna go ahead and put these aside here. All right, first up is the Galaxy Note 3. I still think this is a very relevant device. It's got a Qualcomm 800 2.3 gigahertz processor, a 1080p screen, a removable back SD cover, which is very nice. One thing I should note, especially with the older phones, you really want to get an older phone. If you're going to get a used phone or older model phone, you want to get one with a removable battery, especially a used phone, because the one with the battery integrated, the user might have, depleted the battery depending on how they use it. This one you can go ahead and simply buy a new battery, place it in, and the battery is as good as new. That's one thing with the removable battery and also micro SD card. This phone is actually very capable, especially with overclocking. If you like rooting and installing custom ROMs, you can actually overclock it to stable 2.726 gigahertz. I have a test on that, one of the ROMs with the lean kernel. You'll get scores near 47,000, 48,000 on Antutu. That is really fast processor. That's actually faster than most of the 801 processor used on the newer OnePlus One, HTC One M8, the S5. So in that sense, this phone is great because you can make it just as fast as newer phones. Also, the custom ROM support is awesome with the Note 3. You can even turn it into a Note 4. There's a bunch of software custom ROMs you can install. Now, great battery life, also 4K recording. So that's good. The camera is pretty good. It's not as good as the Note 4, but it's a very decent camera. You can find this for about 310 bucks on eBay still. I still think this is a great deal if you can find it around 300 bucks, maybe 350. Also, do note that you do have an S Pen that you can use, take notes and stuff. That's another plus. And don't forget, you got an IR blaster, even though this is an older model of Samsung phone. This thing still rocks. I mean, the battery life is great. Custom ROM support is actually better on older phones because it's been around for a while. Now, if you want to get the best model, get the T-Mobile Note 3 as it has an unlocked bootloader. You can use it on AT&T, T-Mobile, all over the world. And the 4G LTE bands, it actually supports AT&T, T-Mobile, and the international bands. So it's actually better than the international model. Also, there's a ton of ROMs for it. Just avoid AT&T or Verizon. If you're going to get AT&T or Verizon, make sure you buy a rooted version or a brand new one with an older firmware. Otherwise, you're going to be stuck with no root. Overall, I would have to say the Note 3 is one of the best phablets you can buy, whether you're buying it used or new. It's got great battery life. There's a ton of accessories you can buy, for cheap, and also a ton of custom ROMs. Just avoid AT&T and Verizon. You can get this for about $300 to $350. Even newer ones, I think you can get about $350. I still think this is one of the best deals. If you don't want to spend more than $350 and you want a phablet, you cannot go wrong with the Note 3. Alright, next up is the LG G3. This one has a Qualcomm 801 processor with 2.5 gigahertz. Now, this was the first Android smartphone with a 1440p screen. It's got a removable back cover and also micro SD card, which is really nice. And also it's got a killer camera with laser focus. It's 13 megapixel camera, f2.4. I really love this camera. I still think it's one of the best from year 2014. But this one you can actually pick up on Amazon for about $373 for the International D855 model, which I actually recommend. That one's probably the best model. But this processor on this is plenty fast. You get pretty good ROMs. It's not as good as the Note 3 as far as ROM support, but the camera is awesome. The removable battery options, the price is really good. So if you don't want to spend more than 400 bucks, you want something a little bit smaller than the Note 3, but larger than a small phone like an S5, then you may want to consider the G3. It's definitely one of the best smartphones from the year 2014. I know the camera is going to be a lot better with the G4, but if you don't want to spend the money, definitely you should consider this also. Next up is the Galaxy S5. This one is actually pretty cool. It's got waterproof, so you can take it with you into swimming pool. I do have a video on that. This one also, if you get the T-Mobile model or the international model, you can easily customize it, install CM12 like I did, make it super fast. The camera is pretty decent. This one actually, based on my test, has the longest battery of all Android smartphones. I don't know why, just the way they built it is great. The camera is also pretty good. Just avoid, again, AT&T or Verizon. There's actually no root method if you're on Lollipop. Software is good, even though this is an older phone. If you can get a good price on it, definitely try this one too if you want something smaller than the Note. But between these two, I would actually prefer the G3 more. This one has much better camera, also OIS 4K mode. So that's sort of what I can say on it. Alright, next up is the OnePlus One. When this came out, I was so mad that I couldn't get an invite. Finally, I got an invite and I've been playing with it. It's actually one of the best phablets you can get for $299 for the 32 gig. Also $349 for a 64 gigabyte version. This one also has the same processor, Qualcomm 801, found on the Galaxy S5. Of course, it's got much larger screen. This is a phablet device, a two-handed device. What I like about this, especially for custom ROMs and ROMing, just because it runs CyanogenMod ROM as stock, the ROM support is great. Every new custom ROM that comes out, it runs flawless without any bugs. So that's one thing I can say about it. This is really the official first CyanogenMod phone ever. Now this phone, when it first came out, it was really good price, but now compared to like a Note 3, I would say the price is about the same because OnePlus One hasn't dropped in price. Whereas the Note 3, you could pick one up brand new for about the same price. So in that regards, I would still recommend the Note 3 more. But the OnePlus One is great if you want flawless custom ROMs that you don't have to worry about bugs. Sort of like a Nexus device. Actually, I consider this the new Nexus device because Nexus 6 is so expensive. But it is a pretty good phone. The camera is alright. It's actually the same camera used on the Nexus 6. The only thing I don't like about it is the camera, but the speed is great. Also, the AOSP custom ROMs are great. Very easily rootable, and the build quality is not too bad either. But again, the price when it first came out was compatible against other devices. Now I feel like as price drop for other devices, the price is actually not cheaper. But OnePlus 2 is coming out soon and I would wait out for that. But the ROM and custom support is huge with this one, just because a lot of developers love this phone. Definitely if you're a flashaholic, you should have this one in your closet. Next one is the HTC One M8. Of course, this is the last year's HTC One. It's got two cameras. It's still got that ultra pixel, I think like 4 megapixel. So in that regards, the camera, I just don't like it, the ultra pixel. I think nobody actually likes it. This one also has a Qualcomm 801 processor, just like the OnePlus One and the Galaxy S5. It's got pretty good software. Actually, HTC One devices in general have very good ROM support, especially with AOSP ROMs. So you can't go wrong with this device. It's just HTC just fell out of my favorites a couple years back when they started using the Ultra Pixel. Now HTC One series are great in general. It's got that stereo speaker, so you're gonna really enjoy that sound. Software is pretty good for rooting and custom ROMs. This is also one of the best phones to get. Now, I'm not sure about the prices. If you can get a good, better price than these other phones, definitely hit up HTC One M8. All right, next up is the Galaxy Note 4. This is probably one of my favorite phones of all time. I love this phone. It's got a 1440p screen, Qualcomm Snapdragon 805 processor, clocked at 2.7 gigahertz. Great accessories like this one. This is the S View cover with also wireless charging. Of course, Note 4 is the last Samsung device that Samsung had micro SD card and removable battery. I mean, this is just essential, especially when your phone gets older. You can go ahead and buy a new battery. Also with this one, I have an extra battery and charger. I just swap it out all the time. Also, this case is great. You can do wireless charging. I really like Note series in general. Note 4 is the biggest, baddest of them all. And of course, you can use Gear VR to enjoy your virtual headset. So in that regards, this is still one of the best phones in the world. If you want the best phablet device, Note 4 is certainly the king of that. I do have a full review of Note 4, so check that out. But this is definitely my #1 phone ever. All right, next up is the Note Edge. I love this phone, right? This phone is awesome. The Edge functionality is actually great. You get the notifications over here. With the latest Lollipop, you probably notice the heads-up notification up here when you get a notification. It sometimes blocks web pages when you're reading it. There's no way to disable it on stock Lollipop. Well, that's a problem that can be fixed with custom ROMs, but the Note Edge is great. If you get notifications, it will show up here. Now, the Note Edge is probably the best idea actually Samsung has come up with, but they took out the shortcuts with the S6 Edge. This is great. You can easily switch between apps simply just pressing here. And also when you receive notifications, it no longer takes up space here. It just simply shows up on the side here. I love it because you can keep doing what you're doing, especially with Lollipop. You'll notice the heads-up notification on top. With the Note Edge, you can get it right on the side. It does not interfere with what you do. You know, great processor. Pretty much everything's identical to the Note 4 with the Note Edge features. Now, I just find this way more efficient than the S6 Edge. S6 Edge, they just have edges for looks. This one actually very functional, especially the notification, the shortcuts. Those two things really free up your screen for something else. Not only that, if you do get this Samsung official case, you'll get notifications right here when you receive them. No need to actually open up your phone. I mean, I think this is a great device, but too bad Samsung didn't make enough of these. The price for these are still like near $700-800. So I really like it, but ROM support is pretty bad on the Note Edge. Actually, it's pretty much dead right now. And one of the reasons is because Samsung didn't make too many of these. This was a limited edition, but I still feel like this is the way Samsung should have went with the Galaxy S6 Edge. The S6 Edge screens, I mean, it's not as functional. This one I can do a ton of things here and also when the phone is on. So this is a great device. Again, ROM support isn't good, but this is probably one of the most innovative phones. Great camera as a Note 4. If you can get your hands on one with a good price, I would definitely go for it. But again, this is a limited edition phone, so it's gonna be hard to find a good price for this phone. But I love this phone, it's awesome. All right, Nexus 6. I just feel like Nexus 6 this year was kind of price high. Now the Nexus 6 also has the same Snapdragon 805 processor found on the Note 4 and the Note Edge. Now it's actually slightly faster because it's running AOSP ROM. If you want a ton of custom ROMs that run AOSP flawless, this is definitely the way to go since it's a Nexus device. Now the camera on the Nexus 6 is not as good as the one found on the Note 4. So the camera is not as good, and also it doesn't have an IR blaster. But other than that, it's a very fast phone, fast UI. You're gonna get pure Google. For those of you who want pure Google, definitely you want to go with this. And also sort of like HTC One, they do have stereo speakers, which is sort of nice. But as far as pricing goes, I just feel like it's priced too high this year. But if you're a pure Googler and you want the pure Android Nexus phones, definitely Nexus 6 is the way to go. But for those of you who want to save money, you can do a lot better with OnePlus One, for example, or other phones that are coming out later this year, such as the Asus Zenfone 2, which is not as customizable, but still, overall, Nexus 6 is not a bad device. I just feel like it's a little overpriced. Alright, next is the LG G Flex 2. When I first got this, I really loved this phone, especially with the circle case. You can do a lot of things, play games. You know, it's a pretty cool device. Now, rooting in custom ROMs, there's actually like no custom ROMs for it. The ROM development is pretty much dead. One of the reasons with LG devices also, they do have lock bootloaders, and the G Flex 2 isn't a flagship phone, so it's really a limited edition phone. But if you want something curvy, the camera is the same as the one found on the G3. You can get this, but the price again is kind of high, around $600–700 for this phone. I just feel like that's a little bit overpriced since this still only has 1080p screen, but it does have a removable back cover. No removable battery, but it's easy to replace the battery here. Also micro SD card. So it's really a cool phone. It's like it's got its own niche, but it's definitely not my favorite for rooting in custom ROMs, and the pricing, it's sort of priced high. It's one of those niche phones, you know, it's curved. Alright, moving on to the Galaxy S6 and the S6 Edge. I probably went over this so many times. The coolest part about these phones, it's got the fastest processors in the world. I mean, it's almost twice faster than any other phone that came out in 2014. And the Exynos 7420 chip is super fast. If there are certain games you want to play, you know, definitely this is the way to go. Now, Samsung did remove the removable battery and the SD card, which I think was stupid. But if you don't mind those, it's got a killer camera. It's got the best camera in the world, period, right now, until I get my hands on the G4. Also, battery life is alright, but you know, fast charging sort of makes up for it. But overall, this is a great phone for those of you who want the fastest phone or the phone with the best camera. I mean, I use this as a daily driver now, just for the camera, because I love the camera. It's so stable, the OIS. Also, photos, videos, they all come out great. But it is definitely expensive. You know, you can always wait out till next year or something and get this. Oh, well, by then there should be even better ones. But if you like small phones and, you know, you want the best camera, again, definitely check this out. You can't go wrong with these. Alright, HTC One M9. This is the latest HTC One M9. Now this one has an actual 20 megapixel camera instead of all that weird BS. Also, it did have some exposing problems. There was a software update. It sort of fixed it, but I do still have some exposing problems, as you can see sometimes here. It's not as bad. The camera is not as good as the S6, but it's still better than the M8 and a lot of the other cameras. The 20 megapixels a plus. Now, the coolest part about this phone is, of course, the stereo speakers, and also there is manual mode. You can go ahead and click here and go to manual. You can go ahead and control the ISO, shutter speed, and the white balance, just like the new LG G4. So that is very nice. Also, the UI is pretty fast. It's not a bad phone. I mean, it's not my favorite phone just because I feel like, you know, they could have added some more stuff. But it also got IR Blaster on top, which is a plus. And for HTC hardcore fans, this may be a great upgrade. Again, the pricing, I just feel like it's a little bit high. All right, on to the last phone for today. This is the Asus Zenfone 2. This is the 2GB version. The only difference between the 4GB version is that this one has a slower CPU, which is actually still plenty fast. I think I got about 42,000 in Antutu. This phone is actually not bad at all. I really like it actually. It's really fast, even though this is a slower model. The UI is really fast, and also I think the score I got last time was about 42,000. If you do get the higher capacity version, the 4GB version, it's much faster. It's also got 1080p screen. It's also got dual SIM, which is nice. This phone only costs like $250 or something like that. For the 4GB, it's like $100 more. But it's definitely on my list for one of the best deals. It may be better than the OnePlus 2 this year. I'm not sure yet. But one thing I do have to note out, the display itself isn't as bright, even though it has a pretty large battery. The battery also doesn't last as long as some of these other phones. Actually, it's one of the worst. Also, the camera's decent. It's got this manual mode and stuff, but you know, it's not as good as some of these other flagships. But other than that, it's a very good phone for the price. I should have the 4GB arriving here soon, so I'll have an unboxing review of that soon. But I really love the price on this. The only thing I don't like is that Asus has traditionally locked the bootloaders, which means it's going to be hard to root. Custom ROM support, I'm not sure how good it will be, but my guess is that it's not going to be too good. Anyway, that was just my short mini reviews of all these different phones. Sort of try to point out some of the good things and bad things. But overall, there's a ton of choices. I mean, it really depends on your personal preference and also your budget. So definitely think about that. And if you have any questions about, you know, differences between these two phones, don't forget to put in the comments and I'll do my best to answer all of them. But I'm definitely gonna pick up my Galaxy Edge again, S6 Edge. I just love the camera on it. I love this case. Yeah. Anyway, thanks guys for watching this video. I hope this video helps you in choosing your next smartphone, whether you're buying an old smartphone or a newer smartphone. And of course, it helped. Don't forget to share it with your friends and family. And hit that like, subscribe for me. Follow me on Twitter, Facebook, or Google+. And as always, I'll stay on Android.